This is Corkscrew Convos, another theme park podcast. My name is Chris.
And my name is DJ.
And we're here today to talk about theme parks, roller coasters, barbecue, my Orlando trip, the theater, and everything else under the sun in its time. But first, let's get this disclaimer out of the way.
The views, opinions, and information expressed during the following presentation are solely those of the individuals involved and do not represent organizations affiliated with those individuals.
DJ, we stayed busy on our TikTok account this past week, and we actually got a pretty big reference, I might even call it a sort of a shout-out, by a pretty major online media outlet and information source, that's Snopes.com.
We definitely did. More of a reference, more of a shout out, literally a placement. You can go through that article on Snopes.com, written by journalist Jordan Lyles. He talks about our TikTok post of the Indiana Jones adventure, really Chris's TikTok with that one for sure. I feel like you do way more videos on there than I do, Chris. But talking about the journey,
running out of ideas.
You talk about the journey through the queue line. It's really good, and it's part of a series of our Disneyland secrets. But that video has, I think, over 110,000 views now. It's almost up to 120,000 views.
Yeah, I think we're, when I checked before this episode, we were right around 116,000, around there.
It's crazy. I remember seeing that video, because you kept making some, and I tried to make some, and I watched, and I was like, this one seems to be so much higher for some reason. And I think it's so funny because we've talked about this. We have no idea how the TikTok algorithm works.
Yeah, and it's about Indiana Jones. I have the Indiana Jones music in it, but that's not a particularly popular sound to track with videos, so I don't know why this particular one hit the algorithm at the right time, at the right place, but it did. I have, I think, more compelling quote-unquote secrets that I discuss in different posts, but just something about that particular one, people really picked up on it.
And I've never been to Disneyland, and I don't consider myself a huge Disney knowledge head by any means, and so I can't really add to all these different Disney secrets you point out, Chris, but I wonder if so many people have been on that ride at Disneyland and they're like, oh, why does it take us so long to get to the entrance?
Yeah, that could be it. I'm beginning to form a hypothesis about why we might have gotten some of the attention and interactivity that we did on this particular post. When I'm discussing where the queue goes, I pronounce the ride that is right next to the Jungle Cruise in New Orleans Square, this particular ride, though, but it goes right next to the Jungle Cruise. I call it Pirates of the Caribbean. And a great portion of our comments are calling out my pronunciations, some people agreeing with it, some people disagreeing with it, and I think maybe that is what jump-started its place in the algorithm, maybe? I don't know.
Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Yeah, a lot of people say a version of that. I mean, I don't know, but it's if the ends justify the means, and the memes, actually.
So what you're saying is we need to make TikToks, every single one needs to be controversial,
yes.
So that way we can get some comments during. Okay, yeah,
yes.
Making a note on that now.
Okay, good. So that is our strategy moving forward. We are going to controverse stuff. We'll make that a verb, sure. Well, that was our action on TikTok. We are, of course, also on Instagram, Facebook, the website, corkscrewconvos.com, and our Gmail address, corkscrewconvos@gmail.com. So there is a lot of opportunity out there to interact with the show, receive a bit more content. We have a lot of pretty pictures that we post on Instagram, for example, including some pictures that I took in this trip that we're about to talk about this episode. But there's a lot of reasons to follow the show in more ways than simply listening to it. This is a great spot to really get a deep form connection with the content that we're bringing, the stuff that we're talking about, the discussions and commentary that we have, but there are other opportunities for that as well.
I'm really surprised we got the URL so quickly. I mean, we also have the podcast name, so, that helped. But I thought, we'll probably have to call it Corkscrew Convos 1 or something. No, we got corkscrewconvos.com, so
Yeah.
that should launch here relatively quickly. We've got some fun surprises in store, but I'm kind of one of those people, Chris. I think you're this way too. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I hate to launch something that's not finished or isn't looking as best as it could.
Yeah, so I know that you're definitely working on getting that website really polished, and I do appreciate that. I know it's going to pay off, and I know it'll be great to really have our own website to host a lot of the things that we put out there. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
A permanent place for Chris's Idea Corner.
Yeah. I got some there. Right now, their home is either in the corner itself or
Yes.
on the edge of this outline that we have each day. I said, is this the episode we're going to pull out this idea? I don't know about this. No.
Yeah, let's let it roast. Let it
Yeah.
boil, simmer.
Yeah, I got some ideas, so I will definitely appreciate having that permanent home for that. But if you, dear listener, are new to Corkscrew Convos, let me be the first to welcome you to the podcast. Thanks for stopping by. This particular episode will be a little different from past episodes. It's going to be pretty monotypical, but we do encourage you to listen back to some of our most recent episodes for a taste of what we do. Sometimes we talk about current events in the industry and related industries that are happening right now. Sometimes we talk about ideas that we have, like with the corner, and really just whatever else we want to talk about. We do keep it pretty broad, and that is Corkscrew Convos. So take a look around, listen, and we hope you enjoy yourself.
Yeah, perhaps we'll get some barbecue talk in each episode as well. It's very important to us. And we do jump into live entertainment outside of the themed entertainment industry sometimes, too. Chris always has some different hot takes, you could say, of how to even manage a line or the logistics behind theme park management. And so that can get fun as well. But let me also be someone to say, besides Chris, thank you for being here. And we hope you do enjoy yourself and enjoy this episode and future episodes.
Yes, so... by the way, to add on to that, I do have a vast collection of soap boxes that I can bring out for any number of occasions.
I thought you were going to say a vast collection of soaps.
No, I might have 2 or 3 soaps in the house. I don't know about that, but I have a lot to say about some things that I am interested in, and I think that is the prime point of a podcast. So that's what we do here at Corkscrew Convos, but in the real world, in real life, DJ, as I understand it, you are going to be traveling pretty soon. Where are you headed?
Very soon. It's kind of hard to imagine. We finished this week up, then I've got another week, and then after that, I will be traveling to 2 separate parks. One has been on my bucket list for a long time. I did not think I would ever be able to go to this park, at least not this soon. I will be traveling to Colorado, the west side, and visiting Glenwood Springs, home of the Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park. This is a very interesting park as it's located literally on top of a mountain. It is located in the Rockies, of course, but to get to the park, you drive through the Rockies on I-70, you show up in Glenwood Springs, and then you park at the base of a mountain, and you take a gondola to the top. That's where the park is held. That's where it takes place, all the fun up there. But it's on the top of a mountain, and it might be one of the highest parks in the world, if I'm not mistaken. And they also claim to have the highest roller coaster in the world. So not tallest, but the elevation at which it sits would technically make it the tallest roller coaster in the world. It holds a special place in my heart. One of the first roller coasters I have ever been on. It's the old Thunderbolt over at Celebration City in Branson, Missouri. They've brought it over to Glenwood Caverns. I'm going to get to ride that again. Also, what I believe is one of North America's first alpine coasters. Going to be able to experience that. There's Scream and Swing that goes over the cliff. And then also the Haunted Mine Drop. That's going to be a blast too. This is a 100-foot drop tower located at the top of the mountain that drops you down to a cave. You experience like a 30-degree temperature change, and then you're hoisted back up to the top of the mountain inside of the cave. So that'll be fun as well.
Wow.
And then on the way back from Colorado, this is just a one-day stop in kind of a almost week-long Colorado trip. On the way back, I'll be visiting my hometown park, Worlds of Fun, at least growing up, I should say. Very excited to go back there. It'll be their opening day when I'm there. So we'll see how it goes. There might be a potential special guest there as well, so you'll just have to stay tuned for that. But very excited to do that. Hopefully going to hit a lot of flat rides because I have not been on a majority of their flat rides, and that's my home park. So going to try those out. I get sick really easily, motion sick on sort of spinning types of rides. So we'll see how I fare.
Okay, well, I do look forward to hearing about your journey there and seeing your post on Instagram or what have you. I think that's going to be pretty exciting. I've never been to Colorado. I've been to Worlds of Fun a couple of times, and by the time this episode comes out, it will be directly after our Plan a Park, in which we think about the future of Worlds of Fun. And so it'll definitely be interesting for you to get out there and maybe scope out some of our expansion areas and see what's going on.
Did we just tease a future episode?
Well, in the continuity of things, this is going to be a week after our Worlds of Fun Plan a Park episode.
Oh, okay.
So it's a little different. So we can sort of, I guess, reference it. Go listen to our Worlds of Fun Plan a Park episode. Things are getting a little confusing scheduling-wise because we're trying to bank a few episodes because we're getting pretty busy in the month of May, but we are still definitely committed to having some fun with this podcast as well. But it does require some creative time management, and that's what we've been doing for the recent past.
Luckily, we're so familiar with Zoom nowadays that it's not difficult to do something like this. So thankful we're still able to do it and the frequency at which we do it. I saw a TikTok the other day that was like, oh, your buddy's starting a podcast and they're on episode 15 and they want you to appear on it, but you know they're only going to do 5 more episodes and get tired of it. I'm not getting tired of this at all. This is actually something I really look forward to.
Oh, definitely. Me too. I think we are, I mean, knock on wood, but I think we are avoiding a early slump that maybe some other podcasts have fallen into. I hope that we are avoiding that, and I think we're continuing to improve it, make it fresh. And DJ, I think we've just been talking enough about what we are doing and going to do. Let's talk about what we have done recently now. And this is going to be the majority of this episode. It's where we talk about my trip to Orlando, Florida.
Well, Chris, tell me about this trip to Orlando. As you've said, this was your trip to Orlando. I did not go with you on this trip. I've been there a few times. I've been there more than you have. That's not a I'm better than you sort of thing. But I know that this was it's one of the few times you have been there, and you were able to do some things you've never done before at all.
Oh, yes, many things. This was the first time that I visited 2 parks that I had never been to previously, and those are SeaWorld Orlando and Disney's Animal Kingdom. So both sort of parks with an animal overarching theme, but also having other more regular theme park attractions as well. I didn't necessarily plan it out for that reason, but it was interesting that they both were what I did. I did SeaWorld on Saturday and then Disney's Animal Kingdom on Sunday. But I did arrive on Friday. That was my first was on that Friday evening. DJ, I had my first margarita ever on that Friday.
You've never had a margarita before?
Yes, I have. Well, now that I have, yeah.
Okay. You just,
I was at
is there
Reyes.
a story there? Why not?
I just hadn't gotten around to it yet.
That's fine. I'm just curious.
Now I have.
I'm just curious.
I went to a delightful restaurant in downtown Orlando called Reyes Mezcaleria, or however it's correctly pronounced. I do apologize for that pronunciation. But they had a decent happy hour, yummy tacos, very good wings. They had an ancho dry rub on them and a sort of a tzatziki-inspired sauce, so
Love
little
tzatziki.
Greek-ish, but it was interesting to fuse those flavors. And That was the first time that I had my margarita experience, and it was delightful. I had salt on the rim and a nice, refreshing mixture of whatever they put in a margarita in the drink itself, and it was good.
Lime, tequila, and triple sec.
Oh, that means something to me.
Yeah, downtown Orlando, I'm a huge fan of. I've only been there twice, but I've always gotten just a great feeling when I'm there. As in, there's plenty of stuff to do. It seems like it's a place a lot of people go. I mean, obviously, if you live there, you're not going to the parks all the time, and I think some people are kind of caught off guard when they go to Orlando if you explore outside the parks, because really the majority of the parks are on the south side of town, and some of them aren't really in Orlando technically at all. It seems like if you are basically in central or north, you could potentially avoid the parks altogether. Now, I don't live there, so I can't say that for sure, but that's kind of the vibe I've gotten from downtown Orlando is you kind of don't feel like you're in an area with, one of the most famous theme parks in the world.
Yeah, if you're not in the general big touristy area, you do kind of avoid the resort bubble in some ways. You avoid that resort traffic, and this time you just get regular traffic.
And I feel like I actually said this to, she was my girlfriend at the time. She's my wife now, but I told her I could see living here outside of any of the touristy stuff, any of the theme parks. It was a great downtown area.
Yeah, but it's a lot of sunshine. It is the Sunshine State, but very humid.
Very humid, very humid. I will say that, but I loved downtown and really pretty much everything about Orlando outside of all that other stuff.
Well, it was definitely a good time, but when I was leaving the restaurant area, we were walking down the sidewalk, we noticed a pack of maybe 20 or so bicyclists just going down the street. And we said, oh, it's a bike group or whatever they are. Okay. It turns out they were followed by police cars with their lights on, and they were using their PA system to say, please move to the side of the road. You cannot block all of the traffic lanes. And the bikes were just going every which way. And interestingly, that was not the end of this tale, DJ, when those bikes passed by. We originally just thought, that was strange. But a moment later, and I'm not exaggerating here, there was a pack of hundreds of bicyclists that just rolled down that same street. There was all manner of people, all different kinds of bikes. Some people even have hoverboards because, of course, they did. Some had flags that were of different things here and there, and some had speakers and was blasting music everywhere. And it was hundreds of bicyclists. It was an incredible sight to see. We just observed it from the sidewalk. I took a quick video that I'll put on Twitter eventually, and it sort of felt like the stampede scene from Lion King because there was just so many of them just rolling on through, and we were just standing there. But after a little bit of research, we discovered what this was, and it was maybe a sort of I wouldn't call it a movement, but it was an event. Of course it was an event. This just didn't happen willy-nilly. It was Orlando Critical Mass, which is an event the last Friday evening of each month, and it's some sort of mission for maybe bike awareness or just to get out there and experience the city with your bicycle. That is what it was, and it was definitely an interesting sight upon my arrival in Orlando.
So many of these city centers, too, in the United States at least, are just not equipped for bicyclists. So I wonder if it had to do with that even. But you're right, seeing all of those bikes together, that would have been a sight. And it's kind of like with an orchestra, how one violin on itself is fine by itself is fine, but having a multitude of them is something else. And I'm sure the noise level just from the bikes, if you took out the speakers, people shouting, I'm sure that would have been something to hear as well.
Yeah, it was really something. It was definitely something. It was just around sunset, and Yeah, it was. I said, "Oh, okay, I'm in Florida now." It was interesting, but I did finish the evening at Kelly's Homemade Ice Cream. Have you ever been there,
I
DJ?
have not. No, I haven't even heard of that.
There are a few locations in the Central Florida area, but it was this delicious, locally owned ice cream business with a ton of ice cream options. It was one of those places, DJ, where you could try any number of incredibly delicious cake batter or Oreo fusion or coffee or even plain vanilla and all other crazy ice cream flavors after that. And it was really great ice cream that we had there.
Love a good cake batter ice cream. And so that was your day, Friday evening, really trying to turn into a local, it sounds like. Tell me about your next day.
Well, I wanted to see something that wasn't City Walk or Disney Springs.
Yes.
And I think we achieved that.
Great
That's what I
places
wanted
to
to
eat
do
downtown,
on Friday.
too.
Yeah. So Saturday, I went and had another first. This was SeaWorld Orlando, my first time at the park. I had had some experience previously with both of the Busch Gardens parks, and I could definitely tell that they had the same ownership and the same sort of management for the parks. They're all, of course, owned by SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment. But it was a good day. It was pretty hot. It was pretty busy, but I got a lot done, including a pre-recorded segment that we recorded at the park that you figured out the technology.
Hold on. I think I hear a transmission coming in now.
Yeah, so let's step aside and let that transmission go.
And we shall go live to SeaWorld Orlando. Well, post-live.
Okay.
Live from Pacific Point Preserve at SeaWorld Orlando, this is Corkscrew Convos, another theme park podcast. My name is Chris.
And my name is DJ.
And we're here today to talk about SeaWorld, Seymour, Clyde, orcas, Shamu, maybe, manta, kraken, and everything else under the sun in its time. So DJ, I am here live from SeaWorld Orlando. This is my first time in the park. It's very exciting. It's a pretty busy day at the park, but DJ, I think I made a mistake before I even left my hotel room.
Well, it sounds like it's a fairly busy park. I hear the sea otters in the background, crowd noise even just a little bit. Hear you just fine. What are you talking about, Chris?
Well, it's my wardrobe, DJ. That's the problem. I'm wearing a bright orange, breathable polo shirt with a khaki shorts and a bucket hat.
The bucket hat. You're very Gen Z today.
Yeah. But apparently, pastel polos are what the ambassadors wear at SeaWorld Orlando for the most part. So on multiple occasions, people have come up and asked me questions, and I just either have to try to do the effort to explain to them that I don't work here or just make it up, because it is my first time at the park, and I've done both things, unfortunately.
I imagine if you had your own brand, Chris, it would be the polo shirts that you wear to parks. I know we talked about that a couple episodes ago. I love that that's your style, and you rock it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have my hip pack. I got the breathable cloth materials, got my sneakers on, and it's been a return to the park, like theme parks in general for me, I guess. It was flying JetBlue for the first time yesterday.
Oh, yes. Incredible airline.
Decent.
Yeah.
It was decent. There was plenty of leg room, and it was my first direct flight for the first time since like 2014.
Yeah.
But I didn't need a connecting flight, so that was awfully convenient.
And we might want to just talk on real quick that we're not sponsored by JetBlue. This is your first flight on JetBlue, and also this is your first time at SeaWorld Orlando, and you were just there to be there.
I'm just here to see what happens and maybe dip my toes in the water occasionally.
See what happens at SeaWorld. I see what you did there. But tell us about this, because this is a park that I love. I've been, I think, 4 or 5 times. I always say to folks, if they're going to Orlando, if they're asking me personally, hey, what should I do when I'm down in Central Florida, in Orlando? And I say, well, if you're wanting, a classic thrill experience, great roller coasters, I think SeaWorld has a great collection if you don't want to travel out to, say, Tampa to go to Busch Gardens Tampa.
Yeah, when it comes to coasters and true thrills, Orlando has definitely been getting better in the last decade or so with the coasters like at Fun Spot and, of course, Mako here at SeaWorld Orlando. And the coasters coming into Islands of Adventure, too. So there's definitely been a lot more big thrills being added to this area in Central Florida. And it's my third time ever in Orlando. So there's definitely still a lot of stuff that I haven't done, but I'm really happy to get down here. It was a decent flight, even though there were crying children and babies and that sort of thing. I mean, it's a flight to Orlando. What else would you expect, really?
Very true. Going to a vacation destination with plenty of families, maybe visiting other families too. But I imagine that, maybe for these small children and babies, it's their first time being in the area, and I'm sure their parents or guardians are excited. But tell us what you've done so far today in SeaWorld. It's a very interesting park. I think it's a very beautiful park as well.
It's definitely a nicely built out park. You can probably hear Kraken's lift hill right now. The coast is cresting lift at this moment.
Faintly. The sea otters are still the prominent sound.
Yeah, well, they're the guest hosts here for this quick episode that we're doing now. As I said earlier, it's a very busy day at the park right now, but I'm still managing to have fun here. I mean, I got the all-day dining plan. I don't usually do that when I go to parks. But
yeah, I heard SeaWorld has one of the best all-day dining plans.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard. So that's why I signed up for it right before I left my hotel room, because I think it's a little cheaper or something online. But I got the all-day dining. Since then, I've gotten steak with chimichurri sauce. And, of course, chicken tenders.
Love chimichurri sauce. Now, any barbecue today, Chris?
I want some because I know there's the Voyager Smokehouse, and I've walked past it many times, but that has to have probably the biggest line for food that I've ever seen today.
It wouldn't be a Corkscrew Convo without a barbecue reference, so we want to make sure we fit that in. And one of the places you need to go for sure, I really like the bar by the last turn at Mako. There's a bar right there on the lake. It's a great location to just kind of relax and chill out.
Well, speaking of bars here, I mean, it is a SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment Park, so there's a lot of that here. But there was one spot that I had a meal at that was just outside of, I think, the Seafarer restaurant or something like that. I'm going to look up the exact name later on. But it was something like the Flame Grill, the Sea Flame Grill, something like that. And there was this guy who was doing the sort of the modern one-man band thing where he had all these pedals that he was doing different patterns on while he was playing his guitar and singing. And that was a vibe, DJ. That was really nice. And I sat and watched him for probably at least 20 minutes while I was enjoying my meal. And it's just like, I mean, this is an Orlando park. It has to have a lot of different offerings that aren't just the classic attractions proper or thrills. And I've been looking for them, trying to find them, and I found some little hidden gems here at SeaWorld Orlando, definitely.
I love their holiday event at SeaWorld Orlando. I think they do it very well too. I've been there, multiple times. I really like the job that they put on down there. There's even a section in kind of their marketplace where there's a bunch of stores as you're entering to go towards Mako. They make it snow, artificial snow, and in Central Florida when it's 55 degrees out in November, December, that's really cool. But speaking of snow, tell us about Icebreaker. That's that new Premier Family launch coaster that I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is on a kind of a different section of the park where it's being built. There aren't very many roller coasters around.
This is sort of pretty close by. I think it's called Lakeside Stadium. There's a bunch of stadiums here, but it's by that stadium and the temporary festival area that they open up during some parts of the year, as I understand it. But right now, there are still some construction walls up. This is May 1st, 2021. The entrance itself looks like it's ready to go. The coaster looks like it's ready to go. I know it's had real people on it at some point. I haven't seen them test it today, but it definitely looks ready at some point. I mean, it's a very busy day at the park this Saturday in May that I'm here at, so I guess they don't necessarily need a new attractor to bring people into the park if they're already packed to the gills, pun intended, right here, metaphor intended, here at SeaWorld.
Now you wonder too, if this ride had been open, maybe the crowd mitigation would have been a little bit better?
Well, that's an interesting thing to think about, DJ. I mean, I'm a nerd about many things, and crowd management, crowd control is one of the things that I'm a nerd about. I have, in my previous roles and that sort of thing, I've had a hand in controlling crowds to some degree. And with the way it is right now, I'm definitely going to have more time after this visit to solidify my thoughts about this. But there is some room for improvement from what I've encountered today. And I know staffing is an issue, especially not only with the Orlando parks, but theme parks in general right now. Staffing is an issue because, I mean, it's been pretty turbulent for more than a year now. So now they're increasing capacity on certain things, but then they have to get staffing to match. And I guess the result of that, while they're trying to get all these levels equaled out, is maybe some long lines for food sometimes, lowered capacity at other parts of the experience, but they're working on it. Sometimes there can be busy pathways around here, but they're working on it.
And let me ask you this question, and I want to add some texture here for you at home, dear listener. Chris is at SeaWorld Orlando, a variety of roller coasters there, a B&M Flyer, Manta, Mako, regarded as one of the best hyper coasters out there, over 200 feet tall, being a hyper coaster right over a lake. Kraken, a very, very intense B&M sit-down roller coaster. I think there's 7 inversions on that sucker. Kind of tell me what sort of tips, Chris, now that you've experienced this for your first time, what tips would you give to our dear listeners listening at home who perhaps may be visiting SeaWorld Orlando for their first time, or something that they may be returning and something they might want to consider their next return visit?
Okay, well, first thing I think of when you ask me that is something that does also apply to visits in general when you're really trying to get as much possible as you can get done in a day. I got here right before opening at 9 a.m. this morning, and I mean, walking around, a lot of the park was empty for that first 30 minutes-ish around the park. I mean, Manta in the front of the park already had a pretty decently long line because that's where a lot of people head first that are there to ride coasters. But you would go beyond to Mako or even to Infinity Falls when it's open, and there would be nobody there. So it's interesting to see how the crowd patterns go at a different park that I've never been to before, like SeaWorld Orlando. So that's the first thing I'd mention for this. For the 2 big stadium-style shows that I've been to so far today, which are Orca Encounter and Clyde and Seymour's Sea Lion High. I think that's the full name for it, the new class, something like that. They do, on a busy day like this, recommend that you get into the stadiums around 30 minutes ahead of time. That does track as well with Busch Gardens Williamsburg on their busier days when they have a lot of shows and they fill up pretty quickly. So they would recommend, and I would recommend from my personal experience today as well, of getting to these larger stadiums. Sorry, there's a sea lion there, but often 30 minutes ahead of time. You could probably do 20 minutes if you're okay with getting obstructed view or really up there. Personally, I didn't sit in the splash zones because I don't really want to get wet today. But they do also have splash zones, and as far as I could tell, those filled up pretty quickly today, so they seem to be in demand.
That's excellent to hear, at least having some advice for those visiting, just giving some heads up, some pointers right now for people maybe who have never been there before, people who might be doing a return visit. So that's good to hear. We appreciate that. And want to add a little context there. The ride you mentioned, Infinity Falls, a very, very popular ride from what I've seen of videos of people visiting the park recently, that the line for that ride seems to go very far, kind of out of its queue. I don't know if you've had that experience as well, but this is a river rafting ride with a large drop, at one point the largest drop on a raft ride in the world. And from what I've seen, Chris, long lines on that as well.
Well, with what I've encountered with Infinity Falls today, early on in the morning, the water itself was cycling. There weren't any vehicles moving. Nothing was going down the drop. And there were people waiting in line for it after park opening, so I guess that wasn't a great sign. And then later today, the water has been off, so it's just been flat, level water for every time that I've gone past it today. So I guess today isn't one of those days where Infinity Falls is going to be part of the offerings, but that's just how it goes sometimes.
So right now I'm talking to you where you're at. It is just 2 minutes after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. What does the rest of your day look like? How long are you in Orlando? What other things do you plan on doing, or is it all up in the air right now?
Well, right now I'm at SeaWorld Orlando. I'm having a great time so far, making sure to just live it up with that all-day dining plan. Probably going to stay here for a lot of this day. I mean, I might have some plans with friends later on in the day that take me outside of SeaWorld. But right now, I'm probably next going to head back to Orca Encounter just so I can get back there, because I always hear about these iconic experiences at SeaWorld, and I did it once, but I think I want to do it one more time today. So that's where I'm probably going to be headed next immediately. But for tomorrow, May 2nd, it's pretty fluid right now. I mean, I got some things that I'm working on here. It could be one park or the other or something like that. I have a few options right now. It really depends on what comes together first, I guess. But whatever it's going to be a fun time. And then this coming Monday, May 3rd, I'm going to be headed back. I'm going to be leaving Orlando and headed back to work.
Well, that's always the worst part of any Orlando trip. Any theme park trip is having to go back to work, of course, and wishing you just had a few more hours or one more day. But as you know, life moves on, and we have to go back to our normal-ish lives for a while. So it sounds like you're having a great time, as good of a time as you could be having, right?
I think I'm definitely having a pretty good time today. After Orca Encounter, I'm probably going to check out the new restaurant that they have literally right next to the entrance of Icebreaker, which is the Altitude Burgers. I think it just opened, so I'm going to try to check that out. It's on the dining plan, and hopefully they got a good burger there.
I did not know about a restaurant by Icebreaker, so this must be something adding to this area to be more than just a big capital spend here.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, it's pretty new right now, and this is the first that I've heard of it when I was checking the app, because, of course, there are no paper maps at this park or at a lot of parks right now. Their excuse, I mean, industry-wide, they get rid of the maps, and their excuse is that it's for sanitary reasons, but maps are a personal item that people don't really share around with other groups, so I don't really get that personally. But so I have to use my app. I mean, there was my soapbox for a minute or two, DJ. But
well, almost as if the paper map should stick around, but maybe not the congregational maps, where people are congregating in a group to look at publicly.
Yeah, they got some pillars out here now and again around the different pathways with the larger maps, but I miss the paper maps. And that's not just at SeaWorld, that's industry-wide as far as I can tell right now. It's a cost-saving measure that they have discovered, and they can do what they will with that, and we just have to make the best of it, and that's what I'm trying to do with using the app right now.
Well, Chris, I think we've had a great call here. I mean, this is the first time we've done an on-location call here at Corkscrew Convos, and we hope that we can do more of these. It's kind of these little mini call-ins. We've got other trips planned, I should say. You've got a whole nother day in Orlando. We've got Glenwood Caverns coming up. Worlds of Fun, and I'm sure we'll have more on the docket as this year goes on and parks are reopening, vaccinations are happening. It's just a good sign all around.
Oh yes. So until next time, my name is Chris,
and my name is DJ,
and that was a Sea Lion, and this has been another Corkscrew Convo. Thanks for listening.
Wow, I could definitely hear the sea lions at different points throughout that call. That was pretty fun. I am relatively pleased with the call quality for that, DJ. That was great. Thank you for figuring that out.
You know, I didn't think being a Twitch streamer would come in handy. until that request came through. As Twitch ended up being the way we recorded that, specifically the software I used, was not expecting that. But, I'm glad you had a good day, and I know I said it on the call. Under normal circumstances, really SeaWorld Orlando is, I would say, the typical park I would encourage people to visit if they're looking for that roller coaster thrill in Central Florida.
Yes, I think that is, if you look at Central Florida right now, that is the coaster park. And now with the soon impending opening of Jurassic World Velocicoaster, maybe we're going to have a debate pretty soon about what the roller coaster destination is in Orlando. But for at least right now, it's probably still SeaWorld Orlando.
If you're not willing to make that, what is it, hour and a half drive to Tampa, 2-hour drive?
Yeah, with traffic, it could definitely be that or more.
Yeah, so if you're going to stay in Orlando, those are your two parks if you're looking at that traditional coaster experience. But we heard the sea lions in the background, and you saw some of the shows. What were kind of your takeaways from those shows that you had seen?
Well, I'll say it ended up being quite a day. I saw Orca Encounter 2 times, including one sort of at twilight. So we got some of the atmospheric lighting as part of that show, too. I saw Seymour and Clyde with their little sea lion show, and that was pretty fun, too. And also some delightful live music at the Flamecraft Bar that I briefly touched on in our live segment there. That was just a really great performer. He had all those pedals that he was working with, so he would...
He had a looper pedal.
A looper, okay. He would...
Sorry, I did bring in my guitar knowledge.
Yeah, and he would just create the wall of sound bit by bit, or brick by brick. I know we're talking about Legoland, but brick by brick, he created that wall of sound. And speaking of the all-day dining plan that I ended up doing, I'll say I definitely got my money's worth out of it, especially when it included a soft drink each time. Each time that I redeemed it, as often as every hour, it turns out.
Now, is that a disposable cup, or was this a souvenir-style cup that you would refill each time?
This was the disposable cup. I think they did have an option where you could get a souvenir cup, but then you're carrying that around all day.
Sure, yeah.
And that was my hesitation. But with the all-day dining, first thing I got was a breakfast of muffin and fruit. There was a 30-minute line for it somehow. I don't know how they had such a long line.
What time did this happen?
This was maybe about 45 minutes after park opening, so I'd say around 9:45.
Yeah, that's really strange.
Yeah, I mean,
late breakfast for some folks, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I had all day dining, so I wanted to get a start on it. A lot of the food areas around the park opened as early as 11 o'clock or later around the park, so I did want to get a start on that. And the muffin was decent. The strawberries were actually delicious. Wherever they got those, they were great.
Favorite fruit, by the way, if anyone's sending any sort of care package to me.
Noted, okay. But the next thing I had was a restaurant that was right by Infinity Falls, and it was sort of like an indoor food court area. Mm-hmm. I got that steak with chimichurri sauce, which was very good.
Love chimichurri.
I had those waffle fries on the side as well. It was delicious.
Yeah, I love that food court area. I don't know. I still don't understand the theme to Infinity Falls, really. And for you at home, Infinity Falls, what did I say?
No, I'm saying that's the theme, Infinity.
Oh, yes. For those of you listening at home, dear listener, that's their river raft ride. It has a very tall drop. They also have, right by the ride, this food court area that was built with the ride. It's a very great option, but it seems to just be themed to a very, modern style thing. I know with Infinity Falls, there's this idea of conservation and conserving our water resources, and really the whole theme of SeaWorld now is conservation, but this one specifically goes a bit further and kind of goes in, would you say this is right, Chris, the high-techiness or technological aspect of conservation?
Yes, I would say that. I mean, just look at the logo for Infinity Falls. It is modern slash near
Very clean.
futuristic, clean typography that they use there.
Lots of
There
metal
were
and
lots
concrete.
of signs and murals that say things like "water is home" or "protect water, clean water," some things like that to that end. And so that was definitely the theme for Infinity Falls. But later on in the day, I also had some chicken tenders, of course. They were decent. I went to the new restaurant that just opened ahead of the grand opening of their newest roller coaster, which is Icebreaker. But right next to it, they are doing the thing where they open up a food location right next to the new thing. And it was called Altitude Burger. Are you familiar with what this restaurant is?
Not at all. I know the coaster is a premier launch coaster. It does 3 launches back and forth, really a family-style coaster. But I didn't even know there was a new restaurant over there, let alone new menu items.
Yeah, as I understand it, it is pretty new. I don't know if it opened this week, but it was on the app. It definitely said, "Yes, this is a new location. Please go here." on the application. So I went there, DJ, and I got a burger. It was a burger. I mean, I love burgers. I didn't end up liking this burger, unfortunately, but because it was just another ding on the dining plan, it was okay that I spent that I ate it, that I went there.
Yeah.
If I had spent $15+ for that, which was the prices, or even if you get the Altitude Burger, which is their signature dish there, I think that's more than $20 with tax. That might be a tough burger to swallow, but I mean, it was just another ding on my all-day dining, so it wasn't a huge deal for me.
And I mentioned this in the segment that we recorded, that that restaurant and that new roller coaster are sort of in an area that doesn't see much foot traffic compared to the rest of the park. Most of the coasters and big rides and exhibits are on the other side across the lagoon or the lake there. So it seems like they're also just trying to move the park out there too, maybe to get some congestion down overall.
Yes, in that direct area of the park, there's a lot of festival infrastructure. There is the building that houses Wild Arctic that hasn't been seen for years, I don't think, that motion simulator ride. When I went there, it was all decorated for Cinco de Mayo, and there was a celebration there and live music and people on stilts. So they were definitely trying to bring life into that area. And so I think that's definitely matches with their strategy. I think you're right there.
One more thing, and I think this is kind of the big thing to point out here too. You still had a great time, but just didn't have a chance to do very many rides that day. There's lots of great coasters there. There's Mako, huge B&M hypercoaster, B&M Flyer, which is Manta. You've got Journey to Atlantis, a water coaster, Kraken, which is a floorless B&M coaster, which that is like old school B&M. It has the intensity there that I think some of their newer rides kind of lack. But I understand you weren't able to experience those this time.
Right. I entered the park with the notion that this would not be the last time I visit SeaWorld Orlando. So
Not at
if
all.
I didn't get to something, that was okay. I am not a fan of waiting in lines. I mean, I think not many
either.
people are. And the waits got to be pretty long for all of the coasters. They were definitely extremely popular attractions at that park.
And this is nothing against SeaWorld here, but their queue lines, especially in Central Florida, are not really the most entertaining. They don't have like a Disney queue line telling a huge story, or Universal with a bunch of set pieces. I mean, there's information, right? And even Manta has an actual exhibit inside of the queue, but it's not as nearly as entertaining. It doesn't take you out of the queue experience.
Yeah. And I am not going to lie, in that Florida heat with those crowds, it was tough to follow the mask policy because of how hot and humid it was, and some of the
Mako's queue is completely outside.
and some of the minimal locations to cool off when the park does get that busy. So I was not going to put myself in a queue in some of the queues where they are outdoors or uncovered at points and commit to that amount of time being close to people, because unfortunately I didn't notice a ton of enforcement of things like distancing and other policies that are in place at the park. So I did have to adjust my day.
Now, if you would have had, it's not Quick Queue at SeaWorld, but if you had their skip
is
the
Quick
line.
Queue.
Is it Quick Queue?
Yeah.
If you had, I was thinking of Busch Gardens, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's the same company. If you had Quick Queue, would you have experienced those things, or would you still have waited it out? What did the Quick Queue lines look like? Could you notice?
Unfortunately, I don't think I could tell what the
Okay.
quick queue lines looked like beyond just what the lines that I saw on myself for standby. They were a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
But that being said, I still did have a good time at the park. I saw their enormous Wild Arctic exhibit, which is just hidden away in the catacombs of the Shudder attraction of the same name. And I had no idea that it was back there. And it was like it just kept going and kept going. There was so much there. There were full sets of Arctic explorer stations and their laboratories, their bunk beds, their equipment, and some habitats as well where you could see some of the animals. And I really did like going through that because I could tell, I said, wow, this is actually pretty extensive. This is nice. And that's something that I really appreciated about SeaWorld, getting to visit it for the first time that I didn't realize before. And that is that they often build an exhibit to pair with a major new attraction. And I could see throughout the day this pattern that has been in place for decades, it seems. Like, for example, Manta with that exhibit.
Yes.
Mako has some shark stuff there too. Wild Arctic has what I just described. And thankfully, Kraken does not have an exhibit nearby. That would be terrifying.
And one more question on this, and then we can jump to your Sunday Animal Kingdom. But this is my biggest takeaway, I think, from the first time I went to SeaWorld, when it was my first time. The park is a lot bigger than I expected.
Yes.
Would you say that's true?
Yes, that is a big park. I would say throughout the day, I stayed there from open to nearly to close, and I got a general bearing of where things are, but I still don't know if I have a terribly reliable sense of direction there because it is such a large park and there are different loops and
Took me a few
walkways.
times.
Yeah. So it's definitely a big park.
And one more quick thing I just want to point out, and this is for you, dear listener, and maybe you can learn from Chris here. And this is what I tell folks who maybe don't visit theme parks as often as I do or Chris does. Always manage your expectations when you go to these parks, because when Chris did that, you weren't nearly as disappointed when you couldn't do something and looked forward to it. You know you're going to be back. So not being able to jump on something isn't nearly as disappointing. It's sort of the same thing. If you're going to a park on Saturday in the summer, manage your expectations. It's not the same as going on a Wednesday in the spring or a Wednesday in the fall or something like that. So really manage your expectations and know what else is going on around you so that you're not disappointed when you visit really any park.
Yes, that's exactly right. There was a cheer competition, an enormous cheer competition in town, from what I heard. So that is bringing a lot of traffic to these parks, a lot of traffic to the area. And it was a Saturday in early May, sort of on the tail end of the spring bake season. I know it was going to be pretty busy, and I worked around that.
And I've also heard from Orlando locals, and dear listener, if you're one of those people, please reach out to us and tell us about this. It seems like Orlando doesn't really have a quote off season anymore.
Yeah.
That it's pretty much always busy. So really know what you're getting into depending on which park you go with. But let's jump to Sunday. You went to Disney's Animal Kingdom. Tell me about that, because that's one of my favorite parks. I've only been there once, but no, I've been there twice, but I've enjoyed that park. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, well, with the money that I saved by getting all-day dining at SeaWorld, which I think was just around $40, and I definitely got my money's worth there. All that money that I saved, I spent at Animal Kingdom. I spent a lot of money at the park. I mean, it was a $60 lift ride to get out to the park, period.
Wow. Were you relatively close, did you feel like? Or
I was at a hotel across from Universal, so it was a little bit
Okay.
of a drive.
yeah, that's still relatively close, but I think Orlando lifts and Ubers, they have to. They charge more of a premium as things get busier.
Yeah. And I had plans that I was going to do something on that particular day. They fell through the night before, but I still had an Animal Kingdom reservation that I had on my Disney Experience app. So I went to Animal Kingdom, I went to guest services, I explained my situation, and I say, oh, yeah, we'll sell you a ticket to match your reservation. Okay, 1-day ticket for one park, $143, please.
Wow.
And I knew
think
they
the
were
last
going
time
to
I
do
went to
that.
Magic Kingdom, it was maybe $90.
Yeah, I think online,
gate.
if you were to get a ticket for maybe in some point in early May, it would be 109 plus taxes and fees. So they definitely got my money getting there. I was down $200 just getting in the gate. And I thought, okay, well, I'm here. I made it. It's time to make this day something. And I think, spoiler alert, I did. I had a
And-
great time.
I want to go back to what I asked you about Saturday, because this applies here as well. I said SeaWorld was a lot bigger than I thought. I feel like you might have thought that about Animal Kingdom as well.
Yes, Animal Kingdom, if I'm not mistaken, acreage-wise, is the second largest theme park in the world, I think.
I could see that.
behind,
I get lost in that place. I have no
Yeah.
sense of direction. I do in SeaWorld now. I couldn't tell you where anything's at in Animal Kingdom.
Well, I used a lot of the wayfinding markers around Animal Kingdom. I did find those to be pretty accurate and pretty easy to read, so I was able to find my bearings a lot more quickly than at SeaWorld Orlando. But, I mean, spending that money, I'd expect it to be a lot better.
And tell me about the first walk that you had, because, dear listener, if you've never been to Animal Kingdom, I'm not really spoiling this for you, but the entrance is kind of like, okay, like you see Animal Kingdom, there's a lot of trees, you go through the gate, and it's kind of this meandering sort of pathway. You see kind of little offshoot paths, but really you're just kind of walking around and hearing the sights, or seeing the sights and hearing the noises, and then you kind of, you open up to the giant tree, the Tree of Life.
Yes. When I had just entered the park, I was a little more shaken, having just been fleeced by Disney at the gate for that ticket, and the Lyft driver said, "Oh my goodness! I just spent $200, and it's not even 8:00 in the morning." Oh, but I caught my breath. I said, "Oh, there's the Tree of Life. Okay." So that does exist, and it's not just something I've seen on TV and in advertisements for decades.
Yes, it exists.
It's real. I mean, I always get that feeling when I visit a park for the first time. I said, oh, it exists. It's real.
Yep.
It's not just a
Yep.
joke played on me. It exists.
And they do a great job with the reveal, I think. I can't stress that enough.
Oh, definitely. And the first thing that I did once I was in the park was go to the Kilimanjaro Safari in the back of their Africa section, because I understood this is an attraction that could get pretty long lines during the day, and especially with their current operations where they're seating one party per row. I definitely wanted to head there first.
And the animals are more active in the morning as well, as opposed to later in the afternoon.
Yeah, I saw a ton of animals there, and I got in the Jeep. I wouldn't even call it a Jeep. It's this huge safari vehicle. It's an incredible attraction, DJ. One of the greatest attractions in a theme park in the world, I would say, because of how masterfully it is designed, how the enclosures are built so
Open.
appearing naturally.
Yes.
Yeah, so open. I saw lions, hippos, okapi, crocodiles, rhinos, painted dogs, wildebeests.
There's a couple
I saw so
surprises in
much.
there too. We don't want to spoil it, but there were some things that ride. It really is kind of like a ride. It's more than just looking at animals. It's really cool.
Yeah, and from what I've seen on YouTube and different things here and there used to be a more of a fabricated storyline in the past, but I didn't miss it because really we were just driving around through the route and the driver was just telling us about the animals that we're seeing, neat facts about them, important conservation information about them, and it was a great time. I love spieling attractions, and this was another one of them, and it was done really well.
Might be one of the best spieling attractions, we might add.
Yeah, I mean, not the best, but it's
One of.
really up there.
Well, tell me what else you did. I've done Kilimanjaro. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I was glad I did it. What else did you happen to do?
Well, after that, I headed over to Expedition Everest because I wanted to really get there before the lines of the late morning set in. And wow, that was an amazing experience. It was way more intense than I thought it would be as a Disney roller coaster, especially that helix after that iconic drop out of the mountain. I said, oh, there are some forces to this. How about that?
This is a ride that, you have a forward section, a backward section, probably one of the more iconic rides at Animal Kingdom, dear listener, and one of the newer rides. It wasn't an original attraction built with the park.
Yeah, it opened in 2006. I can't really imagine the park without it.
Yes.
Because you take Everest out, and this is before Pandora, of course, and you'd think, what else do they have? They have Dinosaur. I'm not sure if that was an opening attraction. It might have been in the very early years, and they have the Safari,
Yes.
but it's a
river
whole
rafting
park in
ride as
addition
well.
to it. Oh, yep, Kali River Rapids as well. But they really have rounded out the park, adding these attractions in there, and I was able to really spend a whole day there having a great time.
Now, what did you think of Dinosaur? Because I love Dinosaur.
It's a strong ride. It's not as good as Indiana Jones Adventure. I rode Dinosaur twice because it really is great.
It's great, yeah.
But Indiana Jones Adventure, I mean, it's such a well-done attraction in so many different ways out in Disneyland. They share a ride system, they share a footprint, but Indiana Jones Adventure, it just keeps coming with the different scenes and the different little tricks that they play on you that we got some of with Dinosaur, but not everything. So they're both great, but really Indiana Jones Adventure is still number one in terms of that ride system.
Do you feel Dinosaur is dated at this point? You have Bill Nye narrating, which I'm a huge Bill Nye fan, but the Q line is a little dated, I would say.
He was
I believe he narrates the Q, unless they've changed that.
He might have. I didn't notice it if he did.
I could be completely wrong. I need to fact check myself right now, but I'm almost certain he narrates that ride.
Okay, well,
or at least the Q line. The Q, sorry. I keep saying Q line.
Yeah. With Dinosaur, I think that there were elements of what the attraction looked like that did look pretty dated, especially in the loading area on that final section of the queue. It feels like I'm back in the late 90s because it's a lot of cement, a lot of pastel colors on that cement. And I mean, it's still a great attraction, but that section, I said, oh, this looks pretty old.
Bill Nye is a Q host.
Okay.
He is a Q host.
Well, good.
I do think it's an intense ride. I do like the storyline. I can see how maybe if you were younger, that ride might be a little too much for you.
Yeah, especially with the amount of darkness.
Yes, yeah, that kind of, not jump scare, but just, maybe it is jump scare, but the aggressiveness in the darkness.
Yeah, I think you can probably see a little bit more total wise when you're in Indiana Jones Adventure, but that's because there are things like the scenes that have more black light cutouts and things like that. Which, I mean, that's a discussion for a different day about their place in that attraction, but there's just more in the Indiana Jones Adventure. So if I had to rank them, Indy is first, of course.
So you did Dinosaur, you're over in that section of the park. Tell me about Pandora, because a lot of people are absolutely in love with Pandora. I'm one of those. I don't even really like the movie Avatar, but I can't deny the beauty that is Pandora.
Yeah, well, that's actually where I headed next after I rode Dinosaur for the first time. I took some pictures. I said, well, there are those floating mountains. They're floating more or less. And I saw, look at all that surface treatment on the ground. Look at all these plants. That is pretty cool. And I got into the queue for Navi River Journey.
Ooh, great ride.
And DJ, that is a decent example of what I keep harping on when we do our Planet Park episodes, or when we do different things, thinking about what parks need. That is an all-ride attraction that I feel like parks can't have enough of. It's a slow boat ride. There's a lot of cool lights and cool animatronic or two and interesting music.
Just cool? That's an incredible animatronic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good one.
It's very relaxing, though. So much to look at. It's a great way to cool off. Totally
it's air
right.
conditioning. That's exactly what I was going to say next. And so that is Navi River Journey. It's something that I would want in some shape or form in every park. I know that not all parks could commit as many funds into building something as extensive as this, but it was a good attraction, very solid. I did not end up riding Flight of Passage because it was always a super long line. The lines and the wait times did fluctuate throughout the day, especially after the park hopping function opened up for some ticket holders at around 2 p.m., I think. Then people started moving to different parks around the resort, and the lines went down in some areas, like in the safari. It had gotten pretty long, and then it went into not too much of a line again later on in the evening. So I did end up doing the safari again. But for Flight of Passage, it was always a huge line, so in a similar mindset from SeaWorld, I said, well, I'll do it next time I go when I can really just commit the time to do that attraction as it needs to be done, because it is a major time commitment as it stands, because it's still pulling in those lines.
Or lucky enough to get that fast pass even.
Yeah. Lucky
enough.
Or with a Disney hotel. Who knows?
Well, so you did all of that. Let's talk about some of the food. You did not have an all-day dining plan. Disney doesn't even do that, I don't think. How was that?
I just had one full meal at the park, and that was at Flame Tree Barbecue. Here's where we got our little bit of barbecue talk.
Okay.
I got that pulled pork sandwich. It was okay. I mean, it was... I make better pulled pork, but I don't say that to challenge them. I just mean, like, I am making 2 pork shoulders at a time. They're making dozens at a time, and I'm able to put more care and technique into the meat as it is being prepared. That's just how they do that. It was definitely a competent pulled pork sandwich, and it was okay. It was I didn't go back to Flame Tree Barbecue, but it was a decent lunch. And other than that, I pretty much just snacked here or there. I forgot to get a Mickey bar, even though I should have, because those are delicious. They just
No
perfect.
Dole Whip.
No, I forgot them. Well, I didn't forget about Dole Whips. Those costed a lot of money, so I didn't get those. But I closed the day with more of the safari. I went through all the exhibits. I went to Rafiki's Planet Watch. And DJ, have you been to the Planet Watch?
Almost did that. Could not fit it in my 2 visits.
Yeah, it's a big deal to make that happen because you have to take that train to get to Rafiki's Planet Watch. And if they're distancing the train as they were, they could take a pretty long wait to even get out there. And then you do your thing out there, you pet the animals, you see the exhibits, and then you have to wait in another line to get back. So,
sounds like you timed it right, though.
Yeah, I waited a bit to get out there, but the line to get back wasn't too bad. It was fun to see those sheep and goats just running around all the time. I mean, that's always a good time whenever parks have a petting zoo for sheep or goats. But
of course.
There's rumors here and there. People always say, oh, make it Zootopia, make it whatever. And even other rumors that Rafiki's Planet Watch could be on the chopping block in terms of budget cuts. And I hope that it doesn't get cut because it is a unique offering at the park to have to go through this experience where you take a train to get to this less trod section of the park. And I think that was important to have at Animal Kingdom.
Very unique attraction, and glad you got to do it. I hope to do that someday. I've not done Expedition Everest before, so that's my thing I haven't done. But did you do anything else?
Well, I was planning on, in the morning, if I had my way, I was going to ride Everest as much as I could. But unfortunately, it closed down in the late morning, and it did not open up again that day. So I only got one ride on it, but I am glad I got at least one. And it was a good time. I did end up riding Dinosaur again, and I did It's Tough to Be a Bug.
Yes.
Do you know where that little 3D show is placed in Animal Kingdom, DJ?
I do, because this ride I had wanted to do since I was very small. I didn't go to Disney until I was, I think, 19 or 20 for the very first time. But when I went to Animal Kingdom, I was like, I got to do this. I've heard about it since I was a little kid. Tough to Be a Bug is located inside the Tree of Life.
Yes, it is. It's in the theater inside the Tree of Life. And I thought, wow, there's the Tree of Life, and then there's It's Tough to Be a Bug.
Which has been there since park opening, I believe.
Heading into it, I thought, well, I haven't done it yet. I missed out on the chance to do it at Disney California Adventure when it closed for the opening of Avengers Campus, and so I might as well get it out of the way. DJ, it exceeded my expectations because I was expecting something that was really dated, and I think the graphics held up relatively well. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. And the animatronics, they were, I thought, the star of that show.
Yes, the two animatronics they had were large and impressive. And the little gags here and there where they would poke your back or spray on you or put that stink thing
the
in.
Smell.
So it did exceed my expectations there, but I still feel like it doesn't deserve its location in the park.
You know, when that park opened, Bug's Life was the thing. That was a very popular movie. I feel like it's definitely in the lower echelon of Pixar movies, I feel like now. But it was pretty popular. I think it deserved its location in its time. But I could agree with you now that maybe they need to think about something else going in there.
I just feel like we need something really significant, really powerful, really something more animal-based or conservation or really just, I don't know, like they tried to do something like that with Rivers of Life, and that didn't work for them.
So maybe not IP-based. You're thinking something just animal-centric.
Well, Rivers of Light was not IP-based in its final form. They had a lot of problems figuring out that nighttime show at Animal Kingdom, and it has since closed forever. But that was an attempt to tell a story of the Animal Kingdom without Disney IPs. And for whatever reason, there were probably many reasons, it didn't work. And that's why I'm hesitant thinking about what could they put in the Tree of Life Theater, because it has to be big. The next time they switch this out with something, when the Tree of Life Theater, it has to be another major attraction making a big splash in that theater, which is tough to do because this is a park that when they have theater, they also have Finding Nemo the musical and Festival of the Lion King, which of course both of those were closed during my visit, so I unfortunately did not get to see either of those.
Could it fit maybe a ride, do you think, simulator, or keep it theater?
I don't think I'd want to put a ride in it. I think I would want to keep it a theater.
Okay.
Because when we keep it that theater, we put those seats in there, and they are opening up the opportunity for an experience to be created between performers and the audience. And that is, I mean, if we want to really get out there, that is what theater does. It's a covenant. In school, they said, theater is a covenant between the performers and the audience. And I was like, And I mean, I love theater. So, yeah.
Same here.
But if we want to get really even further out there, Animal Kingdom's mission in conservation is creating another sort of covenant between man and beast. So that's why I want to keep the Tree of Life Theater as a theater. I don't want it to make it another sterile attraction. I want it to be something that elicits a powerful response in people, like theater can do, like I imagine Festival of the Lion King does. So that's my thoughts. I wasn't expecting to get this deep
That was great.
into the Tree of Life Theater, but that's what I think about that.
Did you know my original college major was musical theater? Did I ever tell you that?
Oh, cool.
I guess I never told you that. No, I really appreciate it. I love theater talk. Especially the kind of the theory behind it and everything, too. So that was your adventure at Animal Kingdom. I'm sure everything went smoothly for you.
Well, it's
After spending $200 to get there.
Yeah. I mean, I did continue my streak of being mistaken for an employee again. I think this happened twice at Animal Kingdom, and I wasn't even wearing something that looked like a cast member costume. I was wearing a floral patterned shirt, sort of like a Hawaiian shirt, and my bucket hat.
Okay.
And
so you look
shorts.
exactly like an employee.
Well, that was. I mean, that's what you wear to parks. That's how you stay cool. That's why they're their costumes.
We still need to do this gear show. I'm telling you, a gear episode. What's your theme park gear? But so twice. That's wild.
I mean, even the Lyft driver deliberately deviated from the route that I had put in because he was going to take me to the employee gate at Animal Kingdom.
What?
He thought I was headed to work. I said, "Oh,
How
no,
did you tell him?
I'm just going to visit the park," because I was planning on, generally, if the Lyft driver knows a better route, I'll say, "Go ahead, take it."
Oh, sure.
So I wasn't going to mention something, but I had noticed we went past the entrance and we were going by all these buses, and here's a guard shack. I was, no, I'm not headed to work. I'm just going to the park. And so we turned around, and eventually I did make it to the park itself. That might have contributed.
Did they charge you for that? Yeah.
That $60 Lyft ride.
No, I would have said,
I don't know. It's a tough situation because I don't want to ding people ratings-wise because I know how
put the route in.
difficult that is. Well,
they should have asked you before deviating.
Yeah, they should.
Because I've had that happen to me too. They'll say, in Orlando, like, "Hey, I know you're going to the entrance of like Universal, but if I take you here, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure, that's fine." So that's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to cause trouble because I know people really do rely on their work in
Sure.
something like a ride sharing app.
Sure.
But, I mean, that too. So that was my day at Animal Kingdom. It was a good time, just like with that SeaWorld. Let me hit you with some reflections, DJ.
Yeah, give me some takeaways. You had a whole weekend basically in Orlando at two great
Yeah.
parks.
So the two parks, they had incredibly different atmospheres, and I think that could have been for a number of reasons. The Disney park, Animal Kingdom, you could tell that it was built for high capacity. It was built for big crowds. And so when they did have that strict cap on the visitorship for the park, I mean, that park was sold out. That's why I couldn't buy an online ticket to pair with my reservation that already existed. It really makes for walkable pathways and that sort of thing when you are going through Animal Kingdom. It's not shoulder to shoulder just weaving through traffic to
Right.
get where you're going. In SeaWorld, in many locations, and it unfortunately was like that. And another thing at Animal Kingdom, they did have consistent enforcement of distancing and other policies, and they made a deliberate show of cleaning things and really adjusted the queues to keep people apart. And that was just not only apart in the people that are ahead of you in line and behind you in line, but apart from the people that are near you in any dimension, talking about X or Y on the grid. They adjusted the queues to accommodate for that. And so in the hot Florida sun, we weren't crammed together, we were distanced, and that was nice.
Yeah, and those pathways at Animal Kingdom, you're right, are so wide, so huge, and
Yeah.
there's so many of them.
Yeah, and both parks did have several kiosks for food and drink and whatever closed through the whole days, but I do think Animal Kingdom did have a better effort of what we call ODV, or outdoor vending, where they have those carts that have the things like the Mickey bars or frozen lemonade or all
Popcorn.
those mannered of bottled drinks. Yes, they had a ton of those out there, so there weren't huge lines to get food or drink at Animal Kingdom. The same could not always be said for SeaWorld Orlando.
One thing I did want to ask you, because I don't think you hit on this. Out of all the Disney parks, why did you choose Animal Kingdom this time, knowing you'd have one Disney park?
I've never been to Animal Kingdom before. This was my first visit.
So you've been to the other three.
I've been to Magic Kingdom and Epcot.
Okay.
I have still now not been to Hollywood Studios.
And was there anything that influenced Animal Kingdom over Hollywood Studios for you?
With Hollywood Studios, I have done more that is there, even if I haven't done those specific attractions.
Okay.
Namely Galaxy's Edge. And so with Animal Kingdom, there are more completely new experiences to me.
Okay.
So that's why
That
I
makes
chose
sense.
Animal Kingdom.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. Do you have a favorite ride, favorite coaster that stuck out to you out of both parks?
It's got to be Everest. I mean, that is my favorite Disney coaster. That probably takes the place of, I mean, Disney coasters are not necessarily high up in my coaster rankings, and we're just talking
Big
about
Thunder,
coasters.
Rock and Roller Coaster.
Again, I haven't done Rock and Roller Coaster, so I'd have to say,
okay.
if I had to name a favorite coaster before I did Everest, it would probably have to have been Disneyland's Space Mountain,
Okay.
which is now very different from Walt Disney World Space Mountain.
Okay. I've only done World Space Mountain.
Yeah, they completely rebuilt the Disneyland Space Mountain around 2005, so it is a very modern attraction there. But now Everest, I mean, whew, that is amazing. And I'm still trying to sort out my deeper feelings on what I think of SeaWorld. I've done some research here and there trying to learn more about it, Now I need to combine that with what I encountered with my own eyes. I'm going to be doing some thinking on the SeaWorld experience, and maybe we'll talk about that in the future.
Yeah.
But I definitely have some thinking to do there.
I do
but
hope you
this
can
trip-
go back, because Manta, Mako, Kraken,
Yeah.
all solid coasters in my opinion.
Yeah, and they looked amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this trip to Orlando, it was very nice. It was a quick trip. I mean, it always feels like those trips are too short, but it was a very fun experience, and I look forward to returning to Orlando sometime.
And hopefully with any park trip, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that is exactly it. Sooner rather than later. So that was my trip to Orlando. DJ, now that was the major topic in this episode, but let's have a little bit of a lightning round right now. This is a fast-paced segment in which we go over things that we don't have a lot of information on, or things that we don't have a lot to say about, or also just follow-ups to previous discussions that we've had. So, first bit of lightning, what you got for us, DJ?
Going to make this quick, just a few little points here. One to notice, and I think we might be reading into this a little bit, as evident by Twitter, and most people on Twitter, especially enthusiasts, but someone on Twitter, user Connor Smith, noticed that the webcam at Cedar Point has been turned. It's no longer pointed at what it was pointed at. It's now pointed at Wicked Twister. This is one of Cedar Point's roller coasters. It's a shuttle impulse launch coaster. It goes up 2 towers back and forth as you twist. Kind of an intense ride depending on where you sit. Why is this interesting? Well, there have been rumors that potentially Wicked Twister could be the next on the chopping block at Cedar Point. We don't know that for sure, but that's been a rumor for a while. And I just think it's funny that the webcam does have the coaster, literally pointed in the center of the webcam, like perfectly. So we're not sure, but Connor Smith pointed this out. Tony Clark, their director of communications, came by, kind of said, "Oh, it's what the people want," and had a shrug emoji. So someone else said people are reading into this too much, and he said, "Oh, I know, right?" So who's to say? I think it's funny that it is kind of pointed there. That is rumored to be on the chopping block. We do know of a new Gertzlauer roller coaster coming next year, 2022, somewhere that will break records. Cedar Point's known for breaking records with every coaster they build, pretty much. So we'll have to see. Maybe we're just putting too many coincidences together, but we'll see what happens. It is a great view, but if you're going to show the beach, why show the majority of Wicked Twister?
Yeah, okay. Well, what else you got, DJ?
We're going to jump over to TikTok really quickly. User Mozzarella, got to give her a shout out. She kind of got us into TikTok. She was the first person to mention us on TikTok, and I think after she did that, we were like, okay, we need to start making TikTok content. But she noticed in one of her TikToks that Goliath has now been removed from the park map at Six Flags New England. She did it in a funny way, but made me think, oh, that's weird. That's their giant inverted boomerang built by Vekoma there at Six Flags New England. It's removed from the park map. It's still an existing ride. Not sure what's going on there. Perhaps something new coming there. Maybe they'll get rid of that coaster. Who knows?
Okay. And close it up for us, DJ?
And finally, one more Six Flags park. We're going to Discovery Kingdom on the opposite side of the country. Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster. This is the Skyline Skywarp, the very first one to be built. As far as we know, it is being removed from Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This came through their Facebook response to a user. Don't know what the story is there. I know that ride had some difficulties operating. It was hard to catch it operating. So time will tell what happens there, but we do know it's being removed. Not sure if it's going to be moved somewhere else, but it's not going to operate this year.
Well, that was our lightning round, a very quick round. Thank you for doing that, DJ. You really were quick about that. That's why we do call that the lightning round. But now it is time to hit the brakes, but we're not done yet.
That's right, dear listener. We do have a variety of ways for you to reach out to us and have a corkscrew conversation with you. We're on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Corkscrew Convos. We also have an email, corkscrewconvos@gmail.com. And don't forget corkscrewconvos.com. Right now, that takes you to a variety of places to where you can listen to our podcast, but that will become a fully standalone website here in the very near future. But there really is a reason to follow the show on each of these platforms. We've passed 100,000 views on that TikTok video, almost to 1,000 followers. Let's give our other platforms some love. If you're not following us, consider following us there on really every platform.
Yes, there are a lot of ways for you to interact with the show, including if you have a question about something. Maybe you want a little bit more of discussion on some topic that you're interested about. Well, just let us know, and we can have a corkscrew conversation with you. But that being said, it is time that we close things up. If you do want to support the show, there's a very easy, free way for you to do that. Just leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts, and that will help us out. That'll do a lot to help us to grow the show into something even more.
And be sure to follow us wherever you're listening to us at. It's just a great way for you to know when new episodes come out. Keeps us in your new queue, and you'll know when something comes up. But I think we're ready to wrap this episode up, Chris. Be on the lookout for our future episodes and those future trips that I'm taking, and we'll see you soon.
Was that the sign-off?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
You're good.
Until next time, my name is Chris.
And my name is DJ.
And this has been another Corkscrew Convo. Thanks for listening.